My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone as I stared at the text message from my grandfather. "Emily, come to the house now. Don't tell your mother. I know everything." For years, I had this nagging feeling that something wasn't right, like there was this heavy secret sitting on my chest that I couldn't quite name. But every time I got close to figuring it out, I'd tell myself I was just being crazy, just imagining things. Now, standing in my tiny studio apartment that ate up half my paycheck, even though I had a good job, I knew the truth was finally coming out, and I wasn't ready for it. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this story of justice and standing up for yourself, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever had to cut toxic people out of your life. Your support means everything. Let me take you back to where it all started, to the day that would change everything. It was the 4th of July, 6 months before that text message, and I was on my way to my grandfather Thomas's lakeside estate for our annual family gathering. The morning had started badly. I had woken up at 5 in the morning in my studio apartment, the one with the broken air conditioning that my landlord refused to fix, and immediately checked my bank account like I did every morning. It was a habit born of anxiety, the need to know exactly how much money I had down to the penny. The balance made my stomach sink. After paying rent, my student loans, utilities, and the $500 check I had sent my mother last week because she said she was behind on her mortgage, I had exactly $237 to last me until my next paycheck in 2 weeks. I had just gotten promoted to senior analyst at my firm, a position I had worked my fingers to the bone for, pulling 60-hour weeks and sacrificing every weekend for the past 2 years. The promotion came with a $20,000 raise, which should have changed everything, but somehow I was still broke. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that once my mother got back on her feet, once Vanessa's husband Mike found a better job, once things settled down, I would finally be able to save money, maybe even take a vacation. I had been telling myself this for 5 years. I got dressed in my simple cotton Target dress, the one I had bought on clearance for $19. I looked at the nicer dresses hanging in my closet, the ones I had splurged on back when I first got my job, and thought I deserved to treat myself. I hadn't worn them in months. They reminded me of a version of myself that believed she mattered. The Uber arrived 15 minutes late, and the driver was annoyed about having to come to my neighborhood. I apologized like I always did and gave him a generous tip I couldn't afford because I felt guilty about making him drive so far. The ride to my grandfather's estate took 45 minutes, and I spent the entire time rehearsing what I would say when my family asked about my life. I would smile and say work was great. I would avoid mentioning that I had been rejected for an apartment in a better neighborhood last month because apparently my credit score was terrible, though I had no idea why. I would not mention that I had skipped lunch 3 days last week to save money. I would be positive, supportive, enthusiastic about Vanessa's pregnancy and her Instagram influencer career and whatever else she wanted to talk about. I stepped out of the battered Uber onto the pristine gravel driveway of my grandfather's estate. The house was massive, 3 stories of colonial architecture with white columns and sprawling gardens that led down to a private dock on the lake. There were already a dozen cars in the driveway, expensive ones. BMWs, Mercedes, a Tesla. I smoothed down my cheap dress and felt that familiar flush of shame. The moment my feet hit the gravel, I heard it, the aggressive rumble of an engine that sounded like it cost more than I made in a year. I turned and saw a brand new Range Rover Sport, gleaming black, with chrome accents, come roaring into the driveway like it owned the place. The engine had that distinctive purr that screamed money power status. Out stepped my younger sister Vanessa, 23 years old, and absolutely dripping in designer labels. She was wearing a Gucci dress that I recognized from her Instagram posts, the one she had captioned, "Treating myself because I deserve it." Her sunglasses were Prada. Her handbag was Hermès. Her shoes were Christian Louboutin. And I knew this because she had made a whole Instagram story about unboxing them. Her husband Mike followed, dressed in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Vanessa didn't even glance at me. She was too busy holding up her phone, already live streaming to her 70,000 Instagram followers. I watched her perform, watched her tilt her head at that perfect angle that showed off her cheekbones. Hey guys, just arrived at my amazing grandpa's incredible lake house, she chirped into the camera, her voice taking on that performative enthusiasm that influencers use. Look at this view. Isn't it gorgeous? Yes, this is my car. She dangled the Range Rover keys, making sure the expensive leather key fob was visible to the camera. Early birthday present from my super generous family. No, I won't tell you exactly what I did to deserve it, but let's just say good things come to good people. She laughed, that practiced Instagram giggle that sounded like wind chimes and made my skin crawl. A few guests who had been arriving stopped to watch her, and she loved it. She thrived on attention the way normal people thrived on oxygen. Mike put his arm around her waist, playing the perfect husband for her audience. Baby, let's go inside. You need to sit down. Remember, the doctor said you shouldn't be on your feet too long. Oh my gosh, you guys, isn't he the best? Vanessa cooed into the camera. Taking care of me and baby Morrison. Yes, we're keeping the gender a surprise. Yes, I'll do a reveal video. Okay, gotta go eat some amazing food. Love you guys. She finally ended the live stream and looked up. Her eyes passed over me like I was part of the landscaping. Oh, Emily, I didn't see you there. Did you take an Uber? That's so brave of you. I could never trust my safety to a stranger's car, especially now that I'm pregnant. But I guess you're used to it. There was something in her tone, something that made the compliment sound like an insult. I swallowed the response I wanted to give and just smiled. Congratulations on the car, Vanessa. It's beautiful. I know, right? She ran her hand along the hood like she was petting a beloved pet. It's the perfect mum car. Safe, spacious, stylish. And the best part, Grandpa just gave it to me, no strings attached. He said I deserved something nice. Something twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Vanessa had always been the golden child, my mother's favourite, the one who could do no wrong. I had learned long ago not to compare, not to complain, not to expect equal treatment. I was the strong one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need special treatment. That's what my mother had always told me. That was really generous of him, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. Mike snorted. Generous, it's the least he could do. Do you know how expensive it is to raise a kid these days? We're going to need all the help we can get. Before I could respond, the front door of the house burst open. My grandfather Thomas stepped out onto the porch. He was 78 years old, a former Marine who had served 2 tours in Vietnam and built his fortune through smart real estate investments after he came home. He was the kind of man who commanded respect just by walking into a room. Tall, still broad-shouldered despite his age, with steel grey hair and eyes that missed nothing. But the look on his face that afternoon was darker than I had ever seen it. His jaw was clenched, his eyes were hard, and there was a tension in his shoulders that reminded me of a coiled spring. Emily, he called out, his voice tight and controlled in a way that scared me. Why did you arrive in an Uber? I walked toward him, confused by the question and by the anger I could see simmering beneath his surface. I don't have a car, Grandpa. You know that. I take the bus to work, most days Uber when I'm running late, or when I have to stay at the office past midnight. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my grandfather's face turn red, then darker, almost purple. The vein in his temple started to throb. Several guests who had been chatting on the lawn stopped talking and turned to watch. Even Vanessa put down her phone. What do you mean you don't have a car? His voice was dangerously quiet now, the kind of quiet that preceded an explosion. Where's the Range Rover I sent you 3 months ago? The one I special ordered with every safety feature and premium package. The one I had delivered to your address to celebrate your promotion to senior analyst. Where is it, Emily? The world seemed to tilt sideways. I felt like the ground was opening up beneath my feet. What Range Rover, Grandpa? I never received any car. I swear I don't know what you're talking about. If you sent me a car, I never got it. I saw Vanessa's face go pale. I saw Mike's eyes widen slightly before he schooled his expression, and then I saw my mother. Susan Crawford burst out of the house like a tornado, her face contorted into a mask of forced cheerfulness that didn't reach her eyes. She was 52 years old, blonde, well-preserved through expensive salon treatments and Botox that I knew for a fact she couldn't afford on a part-time job at a boutique. She was wearing a designer outfit that I suspected had come from Vanessa's closet. "Dad, you're confused?" she said loudly, too loudly, in that voice people use when they're trying to convince themselves of a lie. "You're remembering wrong. Your memory isn't what it used to be. We talked about this, remember? Emily doesn't like driving big vehicles. She gets nervous in SUVs. She told me that herself. Didn't you, Emily?" She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes, silently begging me to go along with the lie. And for a split second, I almost did. That's how well trained I was. That's how deeply the need to keep the peace, to not make waves, to be the good daughter had been programmed into me. But then I looked at the Range Rover in the driveway, the one Vanessa had just bragged about on Instagram, the one she claimed my grandfather had given her directly. "No," I heard myself say. "I never said that." My mother's expression flickered just for a second before the fake smile snapped back into place. "Well, you must have forgotten. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. The important thing is the car is being used. I let Vanessa borrow it temporarily because she's pregnant and needs something safe for the baby. You understand, don't you? Family helps family. Borrow it." I felt something cold spreading through my chest. "Mum, are you saying that Grandpa bought that car for me and you gave it to Vanessa?" "I didn't give it to her. I let her borrow it," my mother said, her voice taking on that sharp edge it always got when she was cornered. "And don't use that tone with me, young lady. You make good money, Emily. You're a big-shot analyst now. You can afford your own car. Your sister needed help. She's starting a family. She needed something reliable." Vanessa stepped forward, and I saw something in her face I had never seen before. Not guilt, not shame, but triumph. She was enjoying this. "Look, Emily, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but Mum told me Grandpa wanted me to have this car. She said you didn't want it, and honestly, you never mentioned it, so I figured it was fine. Besides, you're used to public transportation. You've been taking the bus for years. This kind of car suits my lifestyle better anyway. I have to maintain a certain image for my brand, you know." "Your brand?" I repeated slowly. "Your brand that consists of posting pictures of expensive things and getting free products from companies. It's called being an influencer, Emily. Maybe if you spent less time being bitter and more time building your own presence, you'd understand." Vanessa's voice was sharp, now defensive. "Not everyone wants to spend their life stuck in a cubicle. I'm a senior analyst, Vanessa. I manage a team. I don't work in a cubicle." "Whatever. The point is I needed this car and you clearly didn't, so what's the big deal?" I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. I didn't even think about it consciously. It was pure instinct, the need to verify reality, because everything I had believed about my life was suddenly feeling like a lie. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for the dealership I knew my grandfather always used. He had been buying cars from the same place for 30 years. "What are you doing?" my mother asked, her voice rising in pitch. I didn't answer. I just dialed. When the sales manager answered, I put it on speakerphone right there in the driveway, with everyone watching. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. "Sterling Auto Group, this is David speaking. How can I help you?" Hi, David. This is Emily Crawford. I'm calling about a Range Rover Sport that was supposed to be delivered to me approximately 3 months ago. Can you confirm the delivery details for me, please? There was a pause, then typing sounds. Let me pull up your account. Crawford, Emily, correct. Yes. More typing. Okay, I've got it here. Yes, Ms. Crawford. The vehicle was delivered on April 2nd at 9:47 in the morning to the residential address we had on file, 2847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. That's your address, correct? That's my address. I confirmed my voice, barely above a whisper. The vehicle was received by a Susan Crawford, who identified herself as your mother and said she was authorized to sign for delivery on your behalf. She signed all the initial paperwork. However, I'm seeing here that there was a title transfer form submitted approximately 2 weeks after delivery on April 17th. That form transferred ownership from you to a Vanessa Morrison. The signature on the title transfer was supposedly yours. I felt like I was going to throw up. I never signed any title transfer. I was never told about this car. I never authorized anyone to accept delivery for me. David's voice became very careful, very professional. Ms. Crawford, if you're saying that your signature on the title transfer document was forged, that's a very serious matter. That would constitute identity fraud, which is a federal offence. I should mention that our finance department did flag that particular transaction as potentially irregular. The signature on the title transfer didn't quite match the signature we had on file from your earlier auto loan application from 2 years ago, but since the transfer was between family members and your mother vouched for its authenticity, we processed it. My mother vouched for it, I repeated, feeling numb. Yes, Ma'am. Is there a problem? Yes, David. There's a problem. I never signed that document. Someone forged my signature. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Ms. Crawford, I'm very sorry to hear that. If you want to pursue this, you'll need to file a police report for identity theft. We'll fully cooperate with any investigation. We have copies of all the documents, including the title transfer with the allegedly forged signature. Thank you, David. I'll be in touch. I ended the call. My hands had stopped shaking. They were steady now, cold and steady. I looked up at my mother. You forged my signature. You stole my car and you gave it to Vanessa, and you forged legal documents to do it. Don't be so dramatic. My mother snapped, all pretense of sweetness gone now. I didn't steal anything. I made a decision for the good of the family. You didn't need that car. Vanessa did. And before you say anything else, remember who raised you, Emily. Remember who sacrificed everything to put a roof over your head after your father left. I was 7 when Dad left, I said quietly. That was 21 years ago. How much longer do I have to pay for the crime of being raised by you? That's when she hit me. Her hand connected with my face in a slap so hard it knocked my head to the side. I heard the crack before I felt the pain. Then came the burning sensation across my cheek, the coppery taste of blood in my mouth where my teeth had cut the inside of my cheek. There were gasps from the guests who had gathered to watch the drama. Someone said, "Oh my God!" Someone else pulled out their phone and started recording. In the age of smartphones, nothing stays private. "You ungrateful little bitch!" my mother hissed, her face twisted with rage. "After everything I've done for you, I raised you. I fed you. I kept a roof over your head. I gave you life. And this is how you repay me, by threatening to call the police on your own mother. By accusing me of crimes, you're going to destroy this family over a car." Mike suddenly lunged toward me. I think he was going for my phone, maybe to grab it, maybe to destroy it, maybe just to intimidate me into silence. I stumbled backward, but he kept coming. That's when the gunshot split the air. The sound was deafening, sharp and violent. Birds exploded from the trees. Several guests screamed. Everyone froze. Grandpa Thomas stood on his porch with his handgun pointed at the sky smoke still curling from the barrel. He owned the gun, legally had owned it for decades, kept it maintained and registered like the responsible gun owner he was. In Texas, where he had lived for most of his adult life before retiring to this lake house, gun ownership was as common as owning a truck. He had taught me to shoot when I was 16, had impressed upon me the responsibility that came with firearms. "Everyone in the house," he said, his voice cold and flat, and absolutely brooking no argument. It was his Marine voice, the one that had commanded young men in combat. "Now, Mike, if you touch my granddaughter again, the next shot won't be aimed at the sky. Emily, pick up your phone and come inside. Susan, Vanessa inside. The rest of you guests, I apologize for the disturbance. Please help yourselves to food and drinks. This is a private family matter." We filed into the house like chastened children, but I wasn't a child anymore. Something had fundamentally shifted in the last 5 minutes. I had been slapped by my mother in front of at least 20 witnesses. I had discovered my family had been stealing from me. The illusion of family love, the pretense that we were all in this together, that they cared about me, even if they didn't show it well, all of it had shattered like cheap glass. Grandpa Thomas led us to the living room, a large space with leather furniture and a stone fireplace. He gestured for everyone to sit, my mother and Vanessa huddled together on one couch, Mike standing protectively behind them. I sat alone on the opposite couch, and the physical distance felt symbolic. My grandfather walked to his study and returned with a thick folder. He threw it onto the coffee table between us with a thud that made everyone jump. The folder was easily 2 inches thick, stuffed with papers. "I hired a private investigator 2 months ago," he announced without preamble. I had a feeling something was off. Emily never mentioned the car, never thanked me, which wasn't like her at all. And when I asked Susan about it, her stories kept changing. First, she said Emily was being modest and didn't want to brag. Then she said Emily was saving it for a special occasion. Then she said Emily had lent it to Vanessa temporarily. The stories didn't match up, so I paid a professional to dig into the situation. You want to know what he found? No one answered. My mother had gone pale. Vanessa's hands were gripping Mike's arm so hard her knuckles were white. Grandpa opened the folder and pulled out document after document, spreading them across the table, like evidence at a crime scene. There were bank statements, credit reports, photocopies of signatures, transaction records, delivery confirmations, notarized documents. "The car was just the beginning," he continued, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. "Susan, you withdrew $50,000 from the college fund I set up for Emily, the fund that was legally in trust for her education and career development to be used for things like graduate school or starting a business. You withdrew it all last year. Want to guess what you spent it on?" My mother opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air. I felt something cold spreading through my body. "How much did you say?" $50,000, Grandpa repeated, "from a fund that had your name on it, a fund I had been contributing to since you were 5 years old." I turned to look at my mother. Where did it go? She didn't answer. She just looked away. But I already knew. The pieces were clicking into place like a horrifying puzzle. "Vanessa's wedding," I whispered. That 300-guest destination wedding in Napa Valley, the designer dress that cost $18,000, the ice sculpture, the live band, the open bar with premium liquor, the weekend accommodation for all the guests. You told me you had taken out a loan for it. You asked me to contribute $5,000 toward it, which I did, even though I couldn't afford it. You said you were drowning in wedding debt. "It was Vanessa's special day," my mother said defensively, finally finding her voice. "She deserved a beautiful wedding. Every girl dreams about her wedding day. Was I supposed to give her some courthouse ceremony, embarrass her in front of her friends?" "With my money," I said. "Money that was supposed to be mine. Money that Grandpa saved for me." "You didn't need it," Vanessa suddenly spoke up, her voice high and defensive. "You already have a degree. You already have a good job. What were you going to use it for anyway? I needed that wedding. My entire social media brand is based on aspirational living. Do you know how many followers I gained from that wedding? How many sponsorships I got? I stared at my sister like I was seeing her for the first time. Maybe I was. You knew Mum stole from me to pay for your wedding. She didn't steal anything. It's family money. Grandpa has plenty. He can afford to help both of us. That money had Emily's name on it, Grandpa said, his voice hard. Legally, it was hers. Susan had no right to touch it. But it gets better. Susan also used Emily's social security number to open 3 credit cards. Want to guess who's been using those cards? He pulled out credit card statements and threw them on the table. I picked one up with numb fingers. It was a Visa card with a $15,000 limit. The card was maxed out. The billing address was my old apartment, the one I had lived in 3 years ago. But I had never applied for this card. I had never even seen it before. There are 3 cards, Grandpa continued. A Visa, a MasterCard, and an American Express. Total credit limit of $40,000. Total current balance, $67,000 with penalties and interest. All in Emily's name, all destroying her credit score. Emily, do you know what your current credit score is? I shook my head. I felt disconnected from my body like I was watching this happen to someone else. 520. Do you know what that means? That means you can't get approved for apartment rentals in decent neighbourhoods. You can't get approved for car loans. You can't get a mortgage. You can't even get approved for certain jobs because some employers check credit scores. Your financial life has been destroyed and you didn't even know it. I tried to rent an apartment last month, I heard myself say. A nice 1-bedroom in a safe neighbourhood near work. They rejected my application. They said my credit history showed concerning patterns. I didn't understand what they meant. I thought maybe they had me confused with someone else. They had you confused with a person who has $67,000 in credit card debt, Grandpa said. Vanessa, would you like to explain what you bought with those cards? Guillaume. Vanessa's face was flushed now, defensive and angry. Mum said it was okay. She said it was a family expense account. How was I supposed to know it was illegal? What did you buy? I asked, my voice hollow. She didn't answer, so Grandpa did. He pulled out receipt after receipt from the folder. Designer handbags, shoes, clothes. A $5,000 camera for her Instagram content, a $7,000 laptop, furniture for the house you're living in rent-free because I own it, a $3,000 puppy from a designer breeder that you returned after 2 months because it was too much work, Botox, fillers, hair extensions, teeth whitening, regular visits to expensive restaurants that you photograph for Instagram, a trip to Cancun, another trip to Paris. Should I continue? Those were business expenses, Vanessa said shrilly. I'm an influencer. I need to maintain a certain lifestyle to attract brands. It's an investment. An investment in your brand that makes maybe $2,000 a month from sponsorships, Grandpa said. Meanwhile, you've racked up $67,000 of debt in your sister's name, debt that she's legally responsible for, unless she reports you for identity theft. The room went silent. Mike cleared his throat. Now, let's everyone just calm down. I'm sure we can work something out here. Family doesn't need to involve police and lawyers. That's just going to make everything worse. Worse for who? I asked. Worse for you. Worse for everyone, Mike said, his voice taking on a threatening edge. Emily, think about what you're doing here. If you report this, your mother could go to jail. Is that what you want? You want to put your own mother in prison, and Vanessa's pregnant. Do you want to put your pregnant sister through the stress of a legal investigation that could harm the baby, your niece or nephew? Are you really that selfish? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Mike was 30 years old, worked in sales for a pharmaceutical company, and from what I could tell, hadn't been very successful at it. He drove a BMW that was leased, not owned. He wore expensive suits, but I had overheard him on the phone once arguing with a credit card company. He had married Vanessa for her access to family money, I realized. He had probably encouraged her spending because he benefited from it. "Don't you dare call me selfish," I said quietly. "I've sent my mother money almost every month for 5 years. $500 here, 1,000 there, 2,000 for emergencies. I paid for Vanessa's car insurance for 2 years when she said she couldn't afford it. I co-signed on a credit card for Mum when she said her credit was bad, and then she maxed it out and stuck me with the payments. I have given and given and given, and apparently while I was giving you were all stealing. We're family," my mother said, and I heard tears in her voice now. "Family takes care of each other. You've always been the strong one, Emily. You've always been fine on your own. But Vanessa needs help. She's not like you. She's sensitive. She's fragile. I had to protect her. By stealing from me, by making things fair," my mother shouted. "You got everything, Emily. You were always Dad's favourite before he left. You were always so smart, so capable, so perfect. Everything came easy to you. Schoolwork, everything." Vanessa struggled. She needed more support. "I was just trying to balance things out." "Balance things out?" I repeated slowly, feeling something hot and terrible burning in my chest. "You stole over $100,000 from me to balance things out." "It's not stealing if it's family," Vanessa said. "Grandpa has plenty of money. Mum has access to some of it through you. We're just redistributing resources. That's what families do." I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. I felt like if I didn't move, I would explode. I walked to the window and looked out at the lake, at the perfect sunny day, at the guests on the lawn, who were pretending not to stare at the house. "Emily." My mother's voice was softer now, pleading. "Baby, please. I know you're upset. I know this looks bad. But I'm your mother. I love you. I only did what I thought was right. You have to forgive me. We're family." I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now, perfectly steady. "What are you doing?" my mother asked, her voice rising in panic. I opened my text messages and typed a message to 911. "Help. Family violence. Being attacked. My mother assaulted me." I added the address and hit send. Then I took photos of my face where the mark from her slap was already starting to bruise. I took photos of the documents on the table. Evidence. "Emily, no," my mother whispered. "Please don't do this." "You hit me," I said calmly. "That's assault. You forged my signature. That's identity fraud. You stole from me. That's theft. These aren't family problems, Mum. These are crimes." Mike suddenly moved toward me, but Grandpa stepped between us. For a 78-year-old man, he moved fast. "I will put you on the ground, son," he said quietly. "Don't test me." We heard the sirens within 5 minutes. Police response time in this wealthy neighbourhood was excellent. 2 squad cars pulled into the driveway, lights flashing, the remaining guests scattered like startled birds. The next hour was a blur of statements and questions. The police officers were professional thorough. They looked at the evidence Grandpa had compiled. They looked at the mark on my face. They took my statement, then my mother's, then Vanessa's and Mike's. They took photos of everything. My mother kept crying, kept begging, kept trying to hug me. The officers had to physically separate us. She screamed that I was destroying the family, that I would regret this, that I was a traitor to my own blood. Vanessa recorded part of it on her phone, probably thinking she could spin this into content for her followers later. One of the officers confiscated her phone as evidence. Mike got aggressive with one of the officers when they started asking about the credit cards. He raised his voice, got in the officer's face and ended up in handcuffs for obstruction of justice and threatening an officer. They put him in the back of a squad car. When they went to handcuff my mother, she collapsed into hysterical sobs. She grabbed onto a doorframe and had to be physically removed. She screamed my name over and over. "Emily, please, Emily, I'm your mother. Emily, please don't let them do this." I watched it all with a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a movie. This woman who had given birth to me, who I had sent money to every month, even when I could barely afford my own groceries, who I had sacrificed so much for, she had been systematically robbing me blind for years. She had taught Vanessa to do the same. She had raised my sister to see me as a resource to be exploited rather than a person to be loved, and she had the audacity to call me the traitor. They took my mother away in handcuffs. They took Mike too. Vanessa was left standing in the driveway, crying her makeup running with no car. Because the Range Rover legally belonged to me now, and the police had impounded Mike's BMW as part of the investigation, since some of the credit card statements showed it was purchased with one of the fraudulent cards. I watched the police cars drive away, and then I walked back into the house. Grandpa was sitting in his chair looking older than I had ever seen him. The guests were gone. The house was quiet. "Are you okay?" he asked me. "No," I said honestly. "I don't think I am." He nodded. "That's fair. Emily, I'm going to call my attorney. There's something I need to do." Patricia Hendricks arrived within an hour. She was Grandpa's estate attorney, a sharp-faced woman in her 60s who had been handling his legal affairs for 30 years. She set up her laptop on the dining room table and listened while Grandpa explained everything that had happened. "I want to change my will," he said when he was done. "Tonight, right now." Patricia looked at him carefully. "Thomas, you know I have to ask, are you doing this in anger? Are you sure this is what you want?" Will changes made in emotional circumstances can be challenged in court. "I'm not doing this in anger," Grandpa said. "I'm doing this because I finally see clearly. My daughter is a thief. She raised my granddaughter to be a thief. They've been stealing from Emily for years, and they've shown no remorse. None. Even when confronted with evidence, even when caught red-handed, all they did was make excuses and try to manipulate Emily into dropping the charges. That's not family. That's parasitism." He looked at me. "Emily, I need you to understand something. My will currently splits everything 50-50, half to Susan, half to you. Everything. The house, the rental properties, the investment portfolio, the vacation home in Colorado, about $20 million total. Susan would have gotten $10 million with instructions to help Vanessa. I thought she would be fair. I thought she would take care of both of you." "She wasn't," I said simply. My voice sounded hollow. "No," he agreed. "She wasn't. So here's what's going to happen. Patricia, I want everything to go to Emily. The house, the rental properties, the stocks, the bonds, the vacation home, the bank accounts, all of it. Everything." Vanessa, who had been sitting silently in the corner, made a choking sound. "You can't. Grandpa, you can't do that. What about me? What about my baby? What about Mum? When she gets out, we'll have nothing. You're signing our death warrant." "You did this to yourselves," Grandpa said. "Every choice you made, every lie you told, every dollar you stole, this is the consequence." "But the house," Vanessa said desperately, "the house we're living in that's yours, you bought it for her. You can't just take it away." "I can," Grandpa said, "and I will. That house is part of my estate. As of tonight, it belongs to Emily's future inheritance. You have 30 days to vacate the property. If you're not out by then, Emily will have every legal right to have the sheriff remove you." 30 days! Vanessa's voice was a shriek now. "I'm 4 months pregnant. You're going to make me move while I'm pregnant. You're going to make your great-grandchild homeless." "You'll figure it out," Grandpa said coldly. "You're an influencer, right? Resourceful, creative, use those skills." "This is Emily's fault," Vanessa spat, turning on me. "You couldn't just let it go, could you? You had to destroy everything. You got your promotion, you got your nice salary, and it still wasn't enough. You had to take everything from us. I didn't take anything, I said quietly. You stole from me. There's a difference. Patricia worked through the night drafting the new will. It was thorough, airtight, clearly stating that Susan and Vanessa were intentionally excluded due to their theft and fraud. It specified that any contest of the will would result in legal fees being paid from the estate. It named me as the sole beneficiary and executor. Grandpa signed it at 11:30 that night. Two of the police officers, who had stayed to finish paperwork, witnessed the signing, making it legally binding. If anything happened to Grandpa Thomas, everything would come to me. The next 6 months were brutal in ways I hadn't anticipated. My mother was charged with identity theft, fraud, and assault. The prosecutor was aggressive because the evidence was overwhelming and because these types of family fraud cases were becoming more common. My mother's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. The prosecutor offered 2 years in prison. My mother refused. She insisted on going to trial. She genuinely believed that a jury would sympathize with her, that people would understand she was just a mother trying to help her struggling daughter. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecutor presented the forged documents, the bank statements, the credit card records. They showed the timeline of theft going back 5 years. They showed that the stolen amount totaled over $140,000 when you included the car, the college fund, the credit card debt, and the monthly checks I had sent that were based on lies about her financial situation. My mother's defense was that she had been trying to equalize resources between her 2 daughters. Her attorney painted me as the successful, wealthy daughter who didn't need the money, and Vanessa as the struggling young mother who did. The prosecutor destroyed that narrative. They showed my bank statements, my tiny apartment, my student loan debt, my rejection for apartment rentals due to my destroyed credit. They showed Vanessa's Instagram account filled with designer goods and expensive vacations. They showed Mike's financial records, which revealed he made a decent salary but spent beyond his means. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found my mother guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in prison, which she would serve at a minimum security facility, followed by 3 years of probation and mandatory repayment of the full amount stolen, plus court costs. My mother sobbed in the courtroom. She looked at me as they led her away in handcuffs, her face contorted with betrayal and rage. "I hope you're happy," she screamed at me. "I hope you enjoy destroying your family. You'll never see me again. You hear me? Never." I didn't respond. I just watched her go. Vanessa and Mike were charged as accessories after the fact and with conspiracy to commit fraud. They took a plea deal, no jail time, but 3 years probation, mandatory financial counselling, and they were ordered to surrender all items purchased with the fraudulent credit cards. The police showed up at their house with a list and started removing designer bags, shoes, electronics, furniture. The Range Rover was legally returned to me. The process took 3 months and cost $2,000 in legal fees, but eventually the title was properly in my name. The car had depreciated in value from Vanessa's use. There was a dent in the rear bumper. She had never bothered to fix coffee stains on the passenger seat, and the interior smelled like her perfume. I had to pay to get it professionally detailed. The first time I drove it, I cried for an hour in the parking lot. Not from joy, but from grief. Grief for the version of myself who would have been too guilty to take it back. Grief for the family I thought I had, but never really did. Grief for all those years I spent giving and sacrificing and believing that love meant erasure of self. I moved into a better apartment. Not Grandpa's mansion, I wasn't ready for that kind of space, but a nice 2-bedroom with natural light and updated appliances and a building with a gym and a doorman. My credit score started to slowly improve as I worked with a credit repair specialist to remove the fraudulent accounts. It would take time, but it would happen. I started therapy. I should have done it years ago. My therapist was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Chen, and she didn't let me get away with minimizing or excusing or rationalizing. She taught me words I had never heard before: parentification, financial abuse, enmeshment, narcissistic family systems, scapegoat child versus golden child dynamics. I learned that what had happened to me wasn't unique. There were thousands, maybe millions of people out there who had been trained from childhood to believe that love meant sacrifice, that family meant putting everyone else first, that having boundaries meant being selfish. Your mother didn't love you less, Dr. Chen told me once. She just loved herself more, and she taught your sister to do the same. Vanessa gave birth to a boy in October. She named him Mason. She sent me a photo 3 days after he was born, probably hoping the image of a perfect, innocent baby would soften me, would make me reach out, would give her another opening to ask for money. The baby was beautiful, tiny and perfect, with a shock of dark hair. He looked peaceful in his hospital bassinet, unaware that his family was broken, that his mother was on probation for fraud, that his father was working a job he hated to pay off legal fees. I looked at that photo for a long time. I felt something, but it wasn't what Vanessa probably hoped I would feel. I felt sad for that baby, sad that he would grow up in a family that saw relationships as transactions, that measured love in dollars, that taught children to manipulate instead of communicate. But I didn't respond to the message. I couldn't let myself be pulled back in. I knew how it would go. First, it would be a congratulations. Then it would be a visit. Then it would be a small loan because babies are expensive. Then it would be a bigger loan because Mike's job isn't going well. Then it would be a request to co-sign something because their credit is bad. And before I knew it, I would be right back where I started, giving pieces of myself away to people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. I blocked Vanessa's number. The house they had been living in sat empty for 2 months after they moved out. Grandpa had the locks changed and hired a property manager to handle it. Eventually, we rented it to a nice couple with twin daughters. The rent was market rate fair and reasonable. The couple loved the house, took care of it, treated it like it was their own. Vanessa sent me a message from a different number when she found out. "You're renting out our house to strangers. That was supposed to be my baby's home. How can you be so cruel?" I didn't block that number immediately. Instead, I wrote back one message. "It was never your house. It was Grandpa's. Now it's mine. You never paid rent, never paid utilities, never paid property tax. You were living there for free and you still stole from me. The new tenants pay their rent on time every month. That's the difference." Then I blocked that number too. My mother wrote me letters from prison. Long letters about how much she loved me, how sorry she was, how she had made mistakes, but she had always had good intentions. She wrote about how hard prison was, how she didn't belong there, how the other inmates were real criminals, and she was just a mother who had made some bad financial decisions. She never once acknowledged what she had actually done. She never once said, "I stole from you and that was wrong." It was always mistakes and misunderstandings, and I was just trying to help. I read the first 3 letters. Then I stopped opening them. They all said the same thing anyway. "I'm the victim. You're the cruel one. Come visit me. Send me money for commissary. Forgive me. Come back. I need you." I didn't go to visit. I didn't send money. I didn't write back. Grandpa's health started declining around month 5. Nothing dramatic, just the slow wearing down that comes with age. He got tired more easily. His doctors adjusted his medications. We talked about him moving into an assisted living facility somewhere with nurses on staff, but he refused. "I'm staying in my house until they carry me out," he said stubbornly. "I earned this place. I'm not spending my last years in some sterile facility watching daytime TV." So I started visiting more often. 3 times a week, then 4, then almost daily. I would come after work and we would sit on the porch and watch the sunset. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. It was comfortable being with someone who didn't want anything from me except my company. "You did the right thing," he told me one evening. "I know it doesn't feel good. Doing the right thing often doesn't, but you did it anyway." "Sometimes I feel guilty," I admitted. "Mum's in prison because of me. Vanessa and Mike are struggling because of me." "No," Grandpa said firmly. "They're facing consequences because of their own choices. You didn't put them in that situation. They put themselves there. You just refuse to be victimized anymore. There's a difference." He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things. I got promoted again at work. Senior analyst to assistant director. More responsibility, more money, more respect. My boss pulled me into his office and told me I was being considered for a director position that would open up in 6 months. "You've really come into your own this past year," he said. "I don't know what changed, but you're showing a confidence and decisiveness that wasn't there before." I knew what had changed. I had learned to value myself. I had learned that I didn't need to make myself smaller to make other people comfortable. I had learned that my needs mattered just as much as everyone else's. I bought my first investment property 3 months ago. A small duplex in an up-and-coming neighbourhood. Grandpa walked me through the numbers, taught me what to look for, how to evaluate a deal. I was terrified of making a mistake, but he was patient with me. "Real estate is how I built my wealth," he said. "It's solid, it's real, you can touch it, and if you do it right, it takes care of you. The duplex cash flows nicely. I have good tenants who pay on time. I've started looking at another property. I'm building something for myself, building a future that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or generosity." My mother was released from prison 2 weeks ago. She served 18 months of her 2-year sentence and got early release for good behaviour. I know this because Vanessa sent me a message from yet another new number. "Mum's out. She's staying with me and Mike. She has nowhere to go because you took everything. She wants to see you. She wants to apologise properly. Please, Emily. She's your mother. Don't you have any compassion?" I stared at that message for a long time. I thought about responding. I thought about all the things I could say. But in the end, I just blocked the number and deleted the message. My mother made her choices. She can live with the consequences. I'm not responsible for fixing her life. I'm not responsible for housing her or supporting her or managing her emotions. I'm not her parent. I'm not her ATM. I'm not her therapist. I'm not her saviour. I'm just her daughter, and I'm done. Today I drove to Grandpa's house in the Range Rover. The morning was beautiful, clear and cool, with that perfect autumn light that makes everything look golden. I had stopped at his favourite bakery and picked up the cinnamon rolls. He loves the ones he's technically not supposed to have because of his blood sugar, but I bring him anyway because life should include some pleasure. We sat on the porch together drinking coffee that I had made the way he likes it, strong enough to strip paint. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. We just existed together, comfortable in the silence. My phone buzzed. Another message. I didn't need to look to know who it was from. My mother had found my number again, somehow. Or maybe it was Vanessa, or maybe it was both of them tag-teaming, trying different approaches to get me to respond. I showed the screen to Grandpa without reading the message. "More begging?" he asked. "Probably. What are you going to do?" I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. Then I opened the message settings and blocked the number. Permanently this time. I had learned my lesson about unblocking them. Every time I gave them an inch, they took a mile. Every time I showed a moment of weakness, they tried to wedge themselves back into my life. "I'm going to be free," I said. Grandpa squeezed my hand. His grip was still strong despite his age. "Good girl. I'm proud of you, Emily. Not everyone has the courage to walk away from family when family becomes toxic." "It's the hardest thing I've ever done," I admitted. "I know, but look at you now. You're thriving. You're building a life. You're becoming the woman you were meant to be before they spent years trying to make you small. We sat there as the sky turned orange, then purple, then that deep blue that comes right before true darkness. I thought about the version of Emily who had stepped out of that Uber 8 months ago, the one who had been so beaten down by obligation and guilt that she couldn't even recognize theft when it was happening to her. That Emily was gone. She had died the moment my mother's hand connected with my face, the moment I realized that love without respect is just another form of control. So here's my message to anyone out there who is where I was a year ago. If you are giving until you have nothing left, if you are sacrificing your dreams for people who don't appreciate it, if you are being told that your boundaries are selfish and your needs are too much, listen to me. You are not wrong. You are not ungrateful. You are not the problem. The problem is the people who taught you that love means erasure, that family means servitude, that being strong means being silent while they take and take and take. You deserve better. You deserve to be loved without conditions. You deserve to succeed without sabotage. You deserve to keep what you earn and build what you dream and live without looking over your shoulder, wondering who's going to exploit your kindness next. Is it easy? No. Is it lonely sometimes? Yes. Will people call you selfish and cruel and heartless? Absolutely. They will paint you as the villain in their story because admitting they're the villain in yours is too painful for them. But you know what's more painful? Waking up at 40, 50, 60 years old and realizing you gave your whole life to people who never even said thank you. So cut the cord, block the number, change the locks, take back what's yours, build the life you deserve. And when they come crawling back with tears and promises and one more chance, remember this. People don't change until the consequences become unbearable. The minute you relieve those consequences, you become their enabler instead of their victim. And that's a promotion you don't want. I look at my life now, at the career I'm building, the investments I'm making, the therapy I'm doing, the boundaries I'm holding, and I feel something I haven't felt in years. Hope. Real, solid, earned hope. Not the desperate hope that my family will suddenly start appreciating me, but the confident hope that comes from knowing I can rely on myself. My mother will never understand why I cut her off. Vanessa will never admit she used me. And honestly, I don't need them to. Their understanding isn't required for my healing. Their approval isn't necessary for my happiness. They are bit players in my story now, cautionary tales about what happens when you mistake dependence for love. Meanwhile, I'm living, really living. For the first time in my life, every choice I make is for me. Every dollar I earn stays in my account. Every success is mine to celebrate. Every failure is mine to learn from. No one is stealing my joy anymore because I've locked the door and I'm the only one with the key. Have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member? Did they steal from you financially, emotionally, or both? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if you're still trapped in a situation like the one I escaped, let this story be your sign. It's time to choose yourself. Hit that like button if you believe people should stand up for themselves. Subscribe for more stories of justice and redemption. And remember, your peace is worth more than their comfort. Always.